Hey, what's up, app Morpheus? Welcome back to the community. And in this video, I'm going to share with you an Android development roadmap. Now, this roadmap is something that I followed while getting hired as an Android developer. Also, I try to revise these topics before I ended an interview. And this is something that will introduce you to all of the topics that are needed for an Android developer. For now, let's get started. This is the Android roadmap. Previously, I've introduced this roadmap in one of my podcasts. The links will be somewhere down above. I don't know, you can see that this is the roadmap. This is pretty much everything that you need. Other than that, I'll tell you what other things you might need and how to explore different things. Also, I'll be sharing some resources that you can learn from and that will make you a better developer overall. For now, let's get started. Now, as you can see in this particular roadmap, we have a pick a language, Kotlin and Java. The thing is, you need to learn both eventually because a lot of Android apps which are old are actually using Java, and Kotlin is an abstraction of Java. So you need to know both if you want to migrate Java code into Kotlin. Both of these things are necessary. I first learned Java in my college days, then transfer to Kotlin is much more easier, and its syntax is really cool, but you will eventually need both of them. For now, if you want to learn something, start with Kotlin, not with Java. You will eventually know Java by searching things or while building things. Now, let's look at the fundamentals. Development IDE, always explore the development IDE. Without your development IDE, you have no idea where to code. So always understand how to debug your code, how to actually spot memory leaks. These are all the things that IDE helps you with, and there's so many things the Android Studio helps you with. So explore your development IDE first. Basics of Kotlin is absolutely necessary if you want to get hired as an Android developer, because an interviewer will always ask for Kotlin basics, right? Basics of oops are really necessary. This will be taught in your ESB tech as well. So oops are absolutely necessary for any kind of Android developer or any development job. Data structures and algorithms, not that necessary, but they are obviously necessary if you want to get hired in a good position, because all of the good positions will ask you lead code questions, and DSA problems. So it will always be there. What is now to use Gradle? Gradle is the system that helps us build Android apps. So Gradle is absolutely necessary. Understand the basics. Do not go very deep into it, but understand the basics of Gradle and how it helps and overlaps with Android as such. Create a basic Hello World app. Just start with all of these things. Don't just start with basic Hello World app. You have no idea about any of this stuff. Don't go right here. Fundamentals, of course, version control, Git, GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLab, all of these things are necessary. You won't need to actually eventually use GitLab or Bitbuckets as such. If you want to use, you can, but I think my suggestion would be just use GitHub and understand Git. There's certain app components that come into play when we are playing around with Android. All of these things are very important. Services, content providers, broadcast receivers, activities. These are basic models that are always present in Android. You need to understand them. Activity lifecycle is asked a lot in Android interview questions. State changes absolutely necessary. Task and backstack is a navigation backstack, absolutely necessary. Jetpack Compose and XML, both of these things are absolutely necessary because both of these things are being used in our day-to-day environment in our production level code. Jetpack Compose and XML, you need to know both of them. So you can start with Jetpack is much easier to build things on. If you know already XML, you can switch to Jetpack. XML you can learn on the job if you want. That's how I did it. Interface and navigation, app shortcuts and navigation components. Navigation is absolutely necessary. Layouts, you don't need to learn all of them, but you need to know some properties of when to use which. These are some of the things that we can build inside of layouts to build our screens. This is particularly what XML stood for. Animations are really important. You need to learn about that. Design and architecture, absolutely necessary. A lot of high level stuff. It gets asked in Android interviews about design and architecture. And if you are making an app from scratch, for example, if you're working for a startup, design and architecture is a must. So always understand why are we using these four different architectures and what is an advantage? What is the advantage of one architecture over the others? So architectural patterns are absolutely necessary, and understand design patterns. I myself get confused with the design patterns, but they're absolutely necessary if you want to understand how the basics of different pre-built things in Android work. So understand design patterns, and of course this is Flow, RX Kotlin, RX Java, live data. You need to understand Flow and live data. You don't need to understand RX Kotlin and RX Java until unless explicitly mentioned in your job profile. You don't need to understand these two. Start with flows. You will eventually learn live data. What is the difference between two? By the way, the difference is the life cycle. Flow doesn't require life cycle. Live data does. So That's the thing. Dependency injection, you don't need to learn about Dagger. You need to learn about Hilt, Point. That's it. Dagger is actually a high level stuff. If you understand Dagger Hilt, if you understand Coin, you will eventually be able to use Dagger with documentation. You don't necessarily need to learn everything about Dagger as such. Understand what is dependency injection. All of these things come inside of dependency injection. And storage, you need to understand shared preferences and data store room. Yeah, need to understand all of these things. They will be used eventually in your Android apps. Networks, retrofit, OK HTTP. You don't need to understand Apollo Android. Just understand retrofit and OK HTTP, how these two get layered. And there's one more called Ktor. Ktor is a really good library because it can help you even make a server side, which means it will help you make your own server. So you can understand Ktor as well. Asynchronism, absolutely necessary. This is the first thing they will ask while messing around with your head in an interview. So coroutines, threads, work manager, always understand these three. You don't need to understand RX or RX Kotlin as of yet. You don't need to until unless explicitly your app is actually using it. Authentication, cache analytics, all of these things are Firebase stuff. If you start making basic apps around here, when you were able to understand all of these things, you will be able to use Firebase as well. Start making basic apps using Firebase as its backend, or maybe AppWrite as its backend, and you'll be able to do a lot of stuff. When you're actually trying to release your app on Play Store, Google AdMob, Play Services, Maps will always come into play. Apps are absolutely necessary. Payment gateways are absolutely necessary. A lot of people will ask you about payment gateways and Google Maps. Then we have linting. Of course, linting errors is absolutely necessary in the real good production level code in product-based company. Linting is something they will always look after. Testing, a lot of people don't perform testing as such, but understand JUnit and Espressos. Try understanding unit test cases, integration test cases, how they're actually written. Try to actually write unit tests for your own app. That would be something good. Understand debugging. It is absolutely necessary. First task as an fresher would be bugs. To understand debugging, it is absolutely necessary. Distribution, you can actually understand. This is secondary. If you're able to understand all of these things, go for Firebase distribution, Google Play Store, Client APK. These are all the production level stuff when you're about to release your app. So Firebase distribution, Play Store, Client APK comes into play. So the easiest suggestion would be to actually learn all of these stuff while building your own apps. Try to build multiple apps, and that will help you learn all of these things. For example, build an app with MVC and try to build an app with MVVM and try to understand the difference. Open source be both of these things, and just write a Twitter thread or maybe a Twitter post. Other than that, read a lot of blogs. Try to understand. For example, this is a blog that I've saved it. I want to read it, and this is how the PhonePe app is written in Jetpack Compose. This is a new app by PhonePe called Building the Pin Code Android App on Jetpack Compose. This is a good app, and it is written by a Pin Code Android team. Try to actually these kinds of stuff that will help you in the longer run. And other than that, follow a lot of. I've seen multiple of these threads. For example, from Marcin, he has a very good thread on different things about best practices in Kotlin coroutine. He has a good book around Kotlin coroutines and stuff. So I try to follow these guys and try to learn from them. So Twitter would be a thing. I don't think so LinkedIn provides this much knowledge, but peek around a little and that will help you learn a lot. And of course, YouTube is the center of learning everything. So these were some of the resources. These were everything that you need to know to become an Android developer. This is everything. You don't need anything else. The only thing is you need is start learning, start practicing, and start building. That's all you got to do. This is it for now, and hopefully this added some real value to you. If it did, like and subscribe. I'll take my leave, and bye bye.